In today's Farm Report, 2015 will be remembered as a year for high grain production worldwide, and that leads to lower prices and lower farm income. AgriPulse's Cindy Zimmerman has more.
2015 will be remembered as a year of record grain production and low farm income, according to economist Dan Bossie, who presented the economic outlook for agriculture to members of the American Seed Trade Association meeting in Chicago this week. Bossie says the world right now is awash in grain.
The world produced a second largest world corn crop, but the largest on record wheat and soybeans. And when we look at global grain stocks, they're record large at 522. So, yeah, the world has too much grain. That grain, some of it is domiciled in China, which is not available for export. But nonetheless, we have very aggressive sellers out of Europe, the Black Sea. Russia in particular needs to export a fair amount of wheat. Then we look to South America, and Brazil is exporting 33 million metric tons of corn. That is going to cut into U.S. export demand, and we have U.S. wheat exports this year at its lowest level since 1971.
The end result of the record production in large grain supplies has been lower prices and low farm income, and Bossie expects the trend to continue into 2016.
It's the largest drop in farm income going back to the early 1930s, the pre-Depression days. We haven't seen farm income at this low level going back to the 2008-09, what we'd call a Great Recession in the U.S. I am expecting grain and livestock prices to remain relatively cheap. In fact, this will be the first period since the 1970s in which net farm income in the U.S. will slump for 3 consecutive years. So, it's not a very rosy picture. All farmers can do is somehow manage their costs to the best of their ability. Try to look forward and try to use some marketing schemes to lock in margins that are going to show some profitable levels in the year ahead.
Bossie says, unlike previous decades, U.S. farm policy at this point will have no role in correcting the situation.
Government played a very large role in managing supply for the last couple of 100 years, at least in U.S. ag policy. Today, we don't have that. The U.S. farmer has asked for a revenue management type of system, revenue insurance. He is getting that through ARC and PLC granted to him by the government under the last Farm Bill, and he can buy private insurance policies which are subsidized by the government. So revenue insurance does not cut supply. It just assures that farmers have a safety net behind them. So as we go forward, if we don't have a weather abnormality, drought or something like that, U.S. grain stocks keep rising almost each and every year.
Reporting for AgriPulse, I'm Cindy Zimmerman.
The U.S. will probably be producing overall less meat than expected next year, but still a little more than this season, and prices look to be lower than this year for every major livestock commodity. Wednesday's USDA supply and demand report says first-bore beef 2016 production expected to be up roughly 1 billion pounds to 24.6 billion. That increased supply and sluggish packer demand expected to take steer prices down next year by $11 to an average $137 a hundredweight. Hog producers will turn out about 400 million pounds more pork next year at 24.9 billion pounds, forcing another price drop for hogs, about a $2 drop at $48.50 a hundredweight for 2016. Broiler producers on the road to another year of higher production at 40.9 billion pounds versus about 40.2 this year. Broiler prices expected to go down from about 90 cents a pound this year to average 86 cents in 2016. And milk, that output forecast to climb another 4 billion pounds to 212.4, pressuring that all milk price down about 75 cents a hundredweight from this year's average down to 16.35. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.
The long-term highway bill that was passed last week and now goes to President Obama for his signature saved $3 billion in crop insurance program cuts, and that has ag groups pleased. AgriPulse's Cindy Zimmerman has more.
The long-term highway bill passed by the Senate and sent to the president last week saved the federal crop insurance program from cuts that were part of the budget deal. Senate Ag Committee Chairman Pat Roberts defended the conference report that restored the $3 billion in crop insurance cuts.
The commitment we reached with the House was to reverse these damaging cuts and policy changes in order to protect our producers. That's their number one priority for risk management. The message from farm country couldn't be more clear. Do not target crop insurance.
Mary Kay Thatcher with the American Farm Bureau Federation is pleased that congressional leaders kept their promise to restore the cuts, but expects more challenges to the program in the future.
I think it's also a reminder to us that this issue is not going to go away. It will be back in 2016 with a vengeance. We already know that from our opposition already saying we've got bills in the works. We see editorials in the paper kind of on a daily basis. So this is not the last time we'll have to defend crop insurance.
National Farmers Union President Roger Johnson agrees that challenges may arise going forward, but is optimistic in the promise of leadership.
I wouldn't say that we're safe forever and that this farm bill is never going to be touched. But insofar as this budget cycle, I believe that the Republican leadership is keeping their word. They demonstrated that in this latest provision in the transportation bill, and I have every expectation that they will keep their word not to allow any other cuts to come back into crop insurance or other parts of the farm bill.
National Crop Insurance Services President Tom Zacharias says crop insurance was really the key ingredient in the 2014 Farm Bill for agricultural risk management, adding to its growth over the years.
There's probably been 100 new different programs that have come online through RMA. If you look at specialty crop coverage, in 2000 there was probably $7 billion worth of liability coverage out there, and that's gone to over $15 billion, I believe, for 2014.
And now that the highway bill is done, Reese Langley with the National Cotton Council says attention in Congress will be on passage of an omnibus appropriations bill.
Negotiations are continuing now between House and Senate leadership to try to finalize that package, which will fund the federal government following the expiration on December 11th. It's unlikely at this point that this bill will be passed by the 11th, so we'll likely see another short-term extension, but we do expect passage sometime before the holidays.
Reporting for AgriPulse, I am Cindy Zimmerman.
I love the winter weather.
Well, if you love winter weather, this season so far has not been the greatest for you.
With El Nino literally flooding the northern hemisphere with mild air, there have been only a few glimmers of winter.
Agriculture Department meteorologist Brad Rippey, the eastern U.S. has been very mild. Now, remember last year?
Off we're gonna shuffle, shuffle off to Buffalo.
It was more like shovel off in Buffalo with huge snowfalls. But last Thursday, Buffalo set a record for the latest date not having measurable snow.
We are still awaiting that in Buffalo this year.
Many cities across the country having record high temperatures.
For the rest of this week, we're going to see temperatures climbing even further across many parts of the country, and temperatures above 70 degrees as far north as the Central Plains, southern reaches of the Ohio Valley, and the Mid-Atlantic states.
Now, that does not mean there won't be little cold snaps and snow, but in general,
there's nothing to indicate that we'll see any sustained periods of cold in the next few weeks.
In mild Washington, D.C., Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.